Let's talk about how to help your orchestra strings become fourth finger masters. My name is Joel Powell. I'm an orchestra teacher and conductor. I've taught middle school and high school orchestra, and I've taught for 15 years and counting, and I absolutely love what I do. My hope with this channel and this video is to help share with you some of the tricks I find helpful in the classroom. I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Joel Powell Conductor, and I encourage you to visit my website at joelpowellconductor.com. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Okay, so fourth finger. I think if we took a poll of most orchestra directors, most middle school directors certainly would say this is a point of real fear and consternation in the classroom among students and certainly among directors. And I think even for us high school directors, just getting comfortable with making it a norm in our classroom, it's a challenge. We have to make sure our students understand why we want to use fourth finger. A lot of times they just don't understand. They go, okay, well, open A, for instance, is much easier than fourth finger A. Why play fourth finger? That's harder. Well, could be a couple reasons. It's either utility, for the sake of, hey, if we're playing something fairly quick, why have to go to the open A? And when you do that, they kind of laugh and they go, oh, I see what you mean. Or it could also be for the sound quality. I tell them, for instance, like the D string is more of a Dr. Pepper sound. How many of you like pop? Okay, I like pop too. D string is more of a Dr. Pepper sound to me. But then you go to the A string, if you suddenly go, now you got Sprite. You threw Sprite into the mix, right? Real healthy options here. But we want Dr. Pepper. So helping the students to understand why we select fourth finger is really important, and encouraging them, we want you to become masters at this and we know you can. The key in my experience is just normalizing fourth finger. It's something that we do, it's a part of the process. We don't moan or groan about it, and we try to bring joy to that experience as we do it. For me, I'm gonna be really purposeful about how I teach fourth finger. And I use a series of drills to really help introduce fourth finger and to make it a point of strength rather than a point of frustration and weakness. So sequencing violin and viola fourth fingers. Now I'm going to specifically speak to beginning string pedagogy for just a moment. So if this is in your beginning class, I first am going to take the time to really get my students playing a D major scale super in tune. And I've got a link below in the description on how to get an orchestra to play really in tune, my tips and strategies. I also have a link below on how to teach the first 3 weeks of beginning orchestra, or my approach at the very least, and I hope you find that helpful. Once we're really solid with that D scale and we have a really good bow hold, I'm then going to introduce usually somewhere around the 3rd or 4th month of them playing. It just depends. Obviously, there's no set in stone situation because everyone's situation is different. But around then, I'm going to introduce that concept of fourth finger, and I'm going to introduce it with fourth finger A on the D string first for our violins and violas. But certainly, your cellos and basses at this point have been playing fourth fingers, and they're continuing to grow their strength using their fourth finger in the left hand as well. Cellos and basses, by the very nature of their instrument, are using fourth finger right away. We should use this as a point of encouragement and inspiration for our violins and violas. We can say, hey, look, they're doing this successfully. You can do it too, violins and violas. So no whining, you can do it. We have faith in you. If they can do it, you can do it. All too often when we think about fourth finger, we think violins and violas. But the reality is that fourth finger, the whole process of teaching it starts in cellos and basses in our heterogeneous classroom. So it's really important that our cellos and basses are rocking this concept so that when the rest of the orchestra gets going, our violins and violas do it later, they're rock stars as well and they have point of inspiration to refer to. Now, in the case of cellos and basses, this seems so obvious, but so often I see this incorrect when I walk into different orchestra rooms. Is their posture correct? Including end pins. Are their end pins set to the correct height? Students, as they grow, sometimes lose track of this, and we have to help them realize, oh, you've grown several inches. We need you to adjust. So be aware of that, especially as you teach middle school, beginning students, even high school students certainly. Is the end pin set to the correct height? And in the case of cello, when the end pin is set and they stand up with the instrument, the scroll should roughly be near the tip of the nose. Now obviously this varies depending on individual anatomy, but it's a good rule of thumb. And for double basses, as they stand up or sit, whichever you prefer, the end pin is set in such a way that the nut is roughly near the top of their head. And of course the bass is leaning in slightly toward them as well. Now fourth finger with cellos and basses, one of the most common problems that I see is that their hand is collapsed in the left hand. It looks like that, unfortunately, like a letter U or something. Ugh. Instead, we want a letter C because cello and bass are cool. We want to have that nice round hand shape. I call it like rainbow fingers. The other thing I tell my students constantly is think of not crushing a Coke can. We want to think of holding a Coke can and we don't want to crush it like this. And so often, students' thumbs go down like this, which causes the pinky and the rest of the fingers to go flat. So if the fingers are flat on the fingerboard like this, tell them to bend the thumb. Or think of squeezing a tennis ball to get enough hand strength in the beginning stages. And so that when we play, we get that nice resonating note. In this case, I'm playing a G on the D string on the cello. And when it is done correctly, you won't hear any strange vibrations. Now, how often have you had this happen? Now, you might be telling your students, all right, move your finger down towards the ground to get that note higher. But the reality is they're just not squeezing that tennis ball, right? They need to squeeze the tennis ball while not crushing the Coke can. They're getting that nice firm grip on the Coke can, squeezing the tennis ball. And one thing you can do if they're struggling with that is to have them lift up the other fingers and rotate their forearm, rotate the forearm more into the fingerboard, as opposed to that dull thud that sometimes they'll get. If they rotate the forearm, and they can even lift up the other fingers to really make this point, when you're doing this skill, I call it pinky trick, then they can see, oh, that's how much weight I need to put into my finger. All right, I'm really squeezing that tennis ball now. Then you can gradually have them add the other left-hand fingers. Same is true for bass as well. You can have them do the same thing on the note F sharp on the D string, or really any one of the strings. Doesn't really matter for them to master that skill. All the while with your cellos and basses, really important to maintain this left-hand slope. Again, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance, or bass allegiance. It's kind of a fun way to have them remember, oh yeah, I need a little slope to my arm. Now we don't want it all the way down here, because then again, that takes away that left hand strength. If it's way up here, I'm a chicken wing now all of a sudden, we don't want that either. I tell them, come on, no showing off your armpits, right? So keep that elbow nice and relaxed. Just a gentle ski slope, nothing extreme and nothing inverted. We don't want that either. Now I want to point out right away, I use finger tapes. When they're used correctly, they're great. And you can learn more about how I apply those and my process. And that is included in the description below in my how to get your orchestras to play really in tune video. But tapes, when they're used really well, are awesome. When they're used badly, they're really bad too, by the way. But these can be an extreme help, especially as your students are trying to master the skill of where to put the fourth finger. Helps them to visualize where it goes. Now, one really important detail is that I have my violins and violas using a shoulder rest. Kun, K-U-N, or Everest, E-V-E-R-E-S-T, are fairly good, inexpensive options for students to purchase. But I find that this really helps students to have the proper support that they need while playing their instrument, because trying to put that bare wood just completely on the shoulder and to get that fourth finger really well placed, it can be so fatiguing. And you think about a lot of the great players, a lot of the famous players. I think of Sarah Chang, Joshua Bell, Hilary Hahn, Maxim Vengerov, you name it. They're using shoulder rest, so we shouldn't stigmatize it. When it's used correctly as a good tool and it's used properly, it can be a tremendous asset to your violins and violas in your orchestra program. Just like cello and bass, good setup on the violin and viola is absolutely everything. And so by using that shoulder rest we just talked about, my students can do what I call jaw flexes. And it's really good for them to get very proficient with this. No hands, I can hold my instrument, flexing my jaw. My shoulders relax as I do that, nothing's tense, because otherwise you take this off, one of the challenges becomes that they'll often overgrip and then they have tension, and it's insidious. It's going to transfer to the other arm, and it's going to cause bad tone and bad intonation. It's just no good. So really good posture is so important. You got to make sure violins and violas have that look of a violinist and violist. And so take the time to really establish that. Out to the corner 1, up 2, high into the left shoulder 3, ear by the in button, looking over your left shoulder 4 and down the telescope. Notice I have my left hand set here. I slide it back. And in the case of violins and violas, I like to have them polish the strings. Now what that does is it helps to bring the elbow around at the correct orientation we're going to need it on the D string. And the D string is where I introduce this concept. We're polishing the strings. I'm going to have them go to the G string and do the same thing. Look at that. To do that, they have to bring their elbow around, and I'm polishing up and down the neck of the instrument. Now, as I do that, you can see, look how my elbow changes. The students instinctively have to do this, changing their elbow position, A string, polishing the strings, and I have them go all the way up to the end of the fingerboard, and the E string, same thing. And you notice my elbow readjusted once again, because obviously you don't need to be like this on the E string. So this skill helps them in 2 ways. Helps them to be really relaxed, and it helps them to learn the correct angle for the arm for the appropriate string that they're playing on. So I want to show you my 4th finger drill that I use. I swear by it. It works really well if you're detailed and meticulous about the process. Now, this process works really easily. Simply having the students on the D string, we polish the D string. You can even have them polish with the 4th finger then on the D string. And notice what happens to the elbow. It brings that elbow into the correct position, as opposed to being like this, because they can't go all the way up past the neck of the instrument polishing if their elbow isn't in the right place. They have to bring it around, which helps them then to keep their arm and the position of the left arm in the correct orientation and at the correct angle. Then we go to the D string, and here's how the drill works. I have them go D, D, rest, rest, E, 1 finger, rest, rest, F sharp, rest, rest, G, rest, reach the elbow, stretch, rest, rest, tunnel, open A, rest, rest, back to 4th finger. And I have them repeat this process, open A, over and over. Now they might be out of tune. And they can hear, oh yeah, I undershot. Then, oh, I overshot. Okay. And once you're satisfied that the orchestra is getting it pretty well, let them go down. Then G, F sharp, rest, 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 then D. Jaw flex, no hands. Again, emphasizing holding the instrument using their left jaw and their shoulder. The beauty of this is that it's a drill. You can do it every day and continue to build that left hand strength. Your cellos and basses are working on their 4th finger Gs and getting really strong at that. And then the challenge note, the A, their open A in cellos are helping to serve as a really great reference for violins and violas as well. And your basses are playing that 1st finger A on the G string after playing the notes on the D string, D, E, F sharp, open G, 1st finger A. So everyone has a challenge that they're working on. You can also, I highly recommend turning on your metronome and tuner. I'm just using tonal energy in this case, but turn this on and then you can work the room moving around to help students to visualize and get that 4th finger in the right place. So we'll do the same drill again. I have the note A droning on for me. Ready, here I go. Rest, 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 rest. Nice wrist and G, rest, rest. Next is open A, and we're gonna tunnel. We're gonna vamp this back and forth over and over again. Just back and forth between those. They'll be a little off sometimes. They'll struggle with this, and we're going to have them tunnel, not lifting up the pinky. They're going to move the finger to adjust, and they're comparing, is it sound the same? And then we'll have them come back down. Here's the thing, left hand shape is everything in this process. How often have we seen students where everything's falling down here and they have what we call a pizza platter, right? Like they're serving pizza, or a pancake, right? Well, that's because they don't have enough support from their left shoulder and jaw, which is again why I'm a big believer in shoulder rests. I think they really help students when they're used properly and placed correctly. Then notice also, I am making sure that the students are not crushing the grape. Well, that's what I call it. It's kind of silly. Have fun with the kids. Remember, orchestra should be fun. Show your joy. My thumb, I'm not crushing the grape, I'm leaving it open. And then I'm bringing my left hand right next to the first finger tape, and just a little bit of the sun, if I imagine my thumb as the sun, just a little bit of the sunrise is starting to happen. Not full sunshine, just a little bit. And I'm not squishing the grape. Otherwise, that causes every note to be flat. And again, if the wrist is collapsed, for whatever reason, whether it's this or it's a lack of support or both, it's going to cause that note to be flat. And you're always just going to be under-reaching just a little bit, right? So this is why you want to take your time in the beginning stages of teaching fingers 1, 2, and 3, getting them in the correct place. And again, I've got a link to how to get students to play really in tune in the description below. But at this point then, they're going to be really successful with the fourth finger. And they're going to be able to play that fourth finger in tune every time if the hand shape and the look is correct. And again, one of the things that's going to really help to get that correct hand shape is tunneling. You notice that I did that in my drill. I'm making that nice tunnel, which forces the A, which is where that A is ringing, when I still have my fourth finger down on the D string. One of the things I like to point out to the students is that using physics, sympathetic vibrations, when you put your fourth finger down on the tape, really centering it on the tape, with good left hand posture, good body posture, when you play it really in tune, the open A is going to wiggle as well. I don't know if you can see that, my open A is wiggling just a little bit. Sympathetic vibrations, physics, how cool. Once they've gotten really good at doing 2 times on every note followed by 2 rests, then I'm going to have them go to just 1 rest. It's almost like it's in 3/4 time. So ready, go. Rest. 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 Back down. Have them polish the strings again. Polish with that pinky. And again, notice that helps their elbow to get to the right angle without you having to over-explain it. And again, focusing on that tunneling. Then we can have them do 2 times on every note with no rest at all. This is always fun. Again, focusing on all of the posture-related issues we've talked about. We go into playing position. Ready, go. Open. Fourth finger, I'm calling it out for them. Open. Now fourth finger, open A. Fourth finger, back down. Then we're ready to do just 1 time on every note, which is really exciting. They love to show this off to family, friends, and other students in the class. So let's try it. And I kind of make this into a really exciting moment for them. Again, you're building the culture in your classroom. Make it exciting. Make it something to be proud of, not something to be feared or scared of. Ready? Go. Back and forth. And if they're out of tune. They're going to hear it. Making sure they're not lifting the finger every time. We don't want that. We want them to tunnel. And there it is. They're going to feel like total pros, total champs at this. You can do this same drill on other strings, of course. You can do it on any combination of strings. And if your low strings start to get bored, this could be a really great time, if you want to start to teach a little third position as well. Start to show them how to shift. Your basses, D, E, F sharp, first finger G, fourth finger A. For cellos, O, 1, 3, shift to 1 for G, third finger A. And again, I have tapes also for each one of those notes just to make it as clear as humanly possible for them. And here comes the best part. Have them use that fourth finger in as much of the music as humanly possible. Obviously, your cellos and basses are going to be doing that. So maybe it's challenging them more with shifting. But in the case of violins and violas, get those violins and violas using those fourth fingers. You might say, well, I told them to do it, but yeah, then half the section's still playing an open A or an open E or whatever it might be. Really force them to use that fourth finger. And be positive about it. Do it in a fun way. Make it a point of pride, something for them to be excited about. I think of the song Ode to Joy, for example. That's early in most beginning string sequences, and learning to use that fourth finger is a point of pride for the kids when they learn to do it. So, and you can have them hold that note when they get there. All right, cellos and basses, hold that A out to help us tune that note. Your cellos hold open A, basses hold first finger A, or if they shift, they're holding it in the shifted position. And if your basses are shifting on that note, that can be a little bit tricky for them too. So have the cellos be a point of reference for the basses as well. And then they repeat that process. Maybe your neighbor then plays open A. Okay, your stand partner is going to play open A just as a reference, and then the person next to them is going to play fourth finger. Okay, so we do it again, and it helps the kids to be able to tune and have a reference pitch. And then, okay, switch jobs. All right, now everybody plays the fourth finger A as indicated. And you can go through this process really on any one of the strings as well to have the students become really confident on each of their fourth fingers. I will tell you, the G string takes a little bit more work for violin and for viola C string, but much of it just boils down to, again, that elbow position. So polishing the strings with fourth finger pinky, and then we can do the same thing there. And so on. I hope this video has been helpful. Thank you for teaching kids. We need you now more than ever as a teacher. Thank you for teaching kids and for being a positive influence. I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and please feel free to check out my website at joelpowellconductor.com. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm happy to help always if I can. Wishing you all the best, and take care.